Dredging Project, CRMC application file number 2022-11-010 dated August 8th, 2023. Discussion of possible action. Councilors? I did have a discussion with the solicitor on the application and the address portion of it. And if it's okay, would you add a few comments on that, please?
Yes, as you indicated, you reviewed the application and several points in regard to the narrative, certain identification points on the map, and they would all be in order at this time since this matter is on the agenda.
On the application itself, the CRMC cover letter identifies 1 Fort Road and 151 Bay Street, but the application part itself doesn't list 1 Fort Road anywhere. So on if anybody would like it, there's not copies, but people, I'll pass this around. People can browse through it, and everybody can see that Fort Road is clearly labeled on the Yacht Club's website, on the town land records. The Yacht Club is listed as 1 Fort Road as the official address. And so I think and just to refresh everybody's mind, is this was the original objection of the town council, I believe, was the lack of identification of Fort Road on the application maps. And so this one doesn't show it. It does show an alternate route for pedestrian access during the dredging, but it still does not list Fort Road. So if the council wanted to have the town manager, town solicitor send an objection letter to CRMC, they could do so, identifying these informational type discrepancies. And whereas, if I'm not mistaken, I don't believe anybody had disagreement with the dredging itself. It was just proper identifying Fort Road on the application. And so it would be the suggestion to include in there identifying 1 Fort Road as the address on the maps and in the narrative. Give everybody a chance to look at that if you like. Councilor Cordio.
So can we make a motion to direct the, okay, now's the time?
If you want to make a motion, then we'll have a second and we can discuss. Yeah.
I'd like to make a motion that the council directs the town manager to object to the application and the dredging project due to the fact that the town right-of-way Fort Road is not included on the map.
And for clarification purposes, that's for the application packet, the informational packet identifying Fort Road and listing it, not necessarily against the dredging project. Correct. It's seconded by Councilor Overton. Discussion. Councilor Overton.
If I remember correctly, the issue isn't just the address, but I believe we wanted to have the application reference the town, does the town recognize right away in the application as well. So it's twofold, if I remember correctly.
Councilor Lombardo.
Isn't the town in litigation with the Watch Hill Fire District and the Conservancy over the road? No?
That was a question for the solicitor, if you'd like to answer that, the difference between this application and the lawsuit that's pending.
The lawsuit is in the nature of a quiet title action. And so it's really disputed as to the title of the property, and we are in litigation in that regard. Our position in that litigation would be consistent with the motion that's being made at this time to communicate to CRMC that Fort Road ought to be identified in that application. just to further respond to, Councilor Lombardo's question in that regard. As I understand the motion, and as you clarified it, Mr. President, it's a motion that doesn't object to the dredging project itself, but objects to the form of the application and its failure to identify Fort Road. Based on your review and the discussion we had, it seems like there are about 7 points, not necessarily 7 parts of the application, but 7 points to be made, and specific areas of the application and the narrative and on the maps, where we would want to see, based on this motion, where we would want to see that Fort Road right away identified. And that motion would be consistent with our position in the litigation.
Councilor Cordio.
Just a clarification for Councilor Lombardo. This application is not from the fire district or the conservancy. This is the Yacht Club, and we are not in litigation with them. So that's part of the solicitor's recommendation that we can discuss this here and proceed forward.
Councilor Petra.
I don't think it would matter if it was from the conservancy or the fire district. And the fact of the matter is, our position is it's a right of way, so it doesn't matter who in litigation with, in my mind.
Councilor Overton.
I'd say I agree with Councilors Petra and Cordio. Our position on this hasn't changed. They know that we want them to recognize this right of way. And so I would agree with this motion.
Thank you. Madam Clerk, would you reread the motion, please?
I have a motion by Ms. Cordio, seconded by Mr. Overton, that the council direct the town manager to object to the dredging application and the dredging project because Fort Road right-of-way is not listed on the application. Is that correct?
Just for clarification, Mr. Solicitor, is that saying what we need, what we're trying to say, or should we modify that?
As restated by the clerk, that's an objection not only to the application and the failure to properly identify Fort Road as a right of way, but it's also as to the project as well. So if it's the intent of the maker of the motion to object to the application for its failure to identify Fort Road as the right of way and essentially request through this communication that the application properly identify that right away, that would be separate from an objection to the dredging project itself.
So would you like to amend your original motion or withdraw that and to not necessarily object to the dredging project itself, but to the application?
I don't know. I think maybe we should discuss that more. Maybe we do want to object to the whole thing. We have been ignored and then sued just for asking for written word on a map. I mean, I don't know how strong a stance does the council want to take? Just willing for discussion. I can amend it if that's what everybody feels is best.
Councilor Petra.
I mean, she makes a point. I mean, they are suing us and they're playing hardball with us. I would be okay at this time just to object to the application and see what comes back from that. But to point out that we are objecting to not only the address being incorrect, but also not having the right of way identified, and then see what gets kicked back to us from there. Go ahead.
Councilor Overton.
I'd like to ask the solicitor, what is the procedural difference between objecting just merely to the application versus to the project itself?
An objection to the project itself would essentially be objection to the dredging, the project that it is a dredging project. So an objection would object to that dredging going forward. An objection addressed to the application would essentially be asking that the application not proceed on the basis that it fails to identify for us a Fort Road right of way, and therefore is an incomplete and inaccurate application. So that's the distinction.
I understand the distinction between the two. What I don't understand is the procedural difference. Like what happens does any part of the process at CRMC change because we object to the project, or does it delay the application? Or is there any distinguishable difference like with the process, or will it kind of proceed the same no matter what we say?
Procedurally, what we're saying is this shouldn't go forward until there's a complete and accurate application. So procedurally, we would be essentially taking the position that the project shouldn't go forward without a complete and accurate application. And from our point of view, that's properly identifying Fort Road in both the narrative and on the maps. An objection to the dredging would say, we just don't want this dredging project to take place. We're opposed to the dredging project. That's the difference. That's procedural difference.
Councilor Cordio?
I might be able to answer your question a little bit, Kevin. When we went through this in the spring and I was in contact with CRMC, I asked them what their process was for our objection, the letter that we sent. And what they did was reach out to the Watch Hill Yacht Club engineers and let them know that there had been questions because we didn't formally object. And then it went from their engineers to the yacht club, to the attorney, back to CRMC. And I would imagine it would still be the same process. I can't speak for CRMC. Yes, okay, the solicitor is saying yes. So I think it would be the same process, whatever it is we're saying. As far as the dredging of the sand itself and looking at the dredging project, we haven't necessarily stated that we are against that dredging and them moving the sand. There is justification to object to it because they will, in fact, have to stage on that right of way. They have to stage on that right of way. And we can object to that. We have an ordinance, no obstruction of a right of way. You know, it's the law in this town. I think that we are not unreasonable if the yacht club came to us and said, for 1 month, we'd like to reroute pedestrian traffic to Napa Tree. I can't see that anyone in the town would deny that. But do we just allow someone to take over a right of way? I don't know.
Yeah. Councilor Overton?
Sounds petty and it makes you look small and you wonder why they won't come to the table and talk to you. Okay? And they're gonna get sued again and get sued again. And when is it gonna end? But it's, just because you didn't label the road Fort Road and you're gonna hold the dredging project up, and I don't know how many times they've done this over the years, never had any problem. It's not gonna block the right of way. That's just absolutely ridiculous, but you do what you want. But you're not gonna get the results you want. And when you keep saying you want the Watch Hill Fire District, whomever, to come to the table and talk to you, they're not. This is petty. And you're holding it up because you got your nose out of joint and it makes you look small. And you didn't just say that we want a Fort Road. You told them that you were going to take their property by eminent domain. Now, I don't know when the Republicans became reading from the Communist Manifesto, but at one time, Republicans used to say we value privacy rights. But I remember, Phil, you told everybody that we were going to take the beach underneath the cabanas by eminent domain. That is not false.
That is false.
Well, I'll get it for you.
Councilor
You
Lombardo,
said that.
Councilor Lombardo, please, stay on the top. We're in discussion.
Well,
about
he
the dredging
interrupted
project
me.
itself.
He interrupted me.
And
You know, he could say it
Yes.
later. I was speaking. Yes, Mr. Overton said it's clear, everybody heard it. He's gonna take it by eminent domain. That's why they sued you. Okay? It's not just because of the right of way.
Thank you. If I could make this is a time for discussing the topic at hand and let's
A charge was made. I want to rebut.
make it quick.
That, Mr. Lombardo, was completely false, and you know it. I specifically said we would not, nobody wants to take property underneath the cabanas, and you know that. So why would you throw out that garbage? We do have the ability to do eminent domain if someone will not allow our people to get to the beach. But that has nothing to do with tearing down cabanas or putting a right of way underneath the beach. And you know that. That's silly. Why would you put something out like that?
All
You're
right, we're
wrong.
moving on. I will say that he didn't say that the council would take eminent. There wasn't anything affirmative like that. Comments were made, but nothing was affirmative at that time. So my suggestion, okay. All right. Well. If I may make a suggestion, as far as the motion that's on the table, if Councilor Cordio is amenable to this, that in the application, CRMC asked that people really study the project and look at the details of it. I think based upon what everybody has said, nobody's really opposed to the actual dredging project itself, if I'm not mistaken. And then so that there's no confusion, so that the council's not perceived as just throwing roadblocks up, but just reiterate and take the objection to the dredging project out and focus on identifying Fort Road on the map and in the addresses, the appropriate locations on the application that the solicitor spoke about. And the injection will be noted on that, because once again, the Fort Road right away is not identified either as a road on the map or in the narrative or in the address for the yacht club is also not listed. Councilor Shalala.
I just wanted to ask if we all agree that dredging should be done, can we just move forward and say we want the dredging, but we want to add, the address change on the application?
LaPetra.
I would like to go forward with that as well, and this is the reason. I don't want to oppose the dredging. Let's kick it back in their court, and Mr. Lombardi used the word petty. I think it would be very petty on the Watch Hill Yacht Club's behalf if they were to hold up the dredging project because they didn't want to recognize the right of way. So let's see who really is petty. So that's why I don't want to oppose the dredging. Let them put in a proper application and they can dredge. We'll find out.
So Councilor Cordio.
I do have a question for the solicitor. The application that the yacht club is submitting to CRMC, are they bound by law to present a true and accurate application and not omit without omissions? Are they legally bound to that when they submit an application to CRMC?
Yes,
So we will be taking the Watch Hill Yacht Club. We can, again, going back to the motion and maybe phrasing this the right way so that CRMC accepts it and looks at it in the proper way, that we object to the application, the inaccuracies and omissions of the right of way, and the improper address location of the yacht club. Is that reasonable? I'm just wondering, I'm asking the solicitor if that would be a reasonable amendment to bring in the legal piece of their application to CRMC.
Would
Yes,
you like to withdraw that one and then make a clean motion or amend it? You want clarification from the solicitor on it?
I'll withdraw my original motion and then the solicitor can help us with the second one.
Who seconded that, Mary?
I'll withdraw my second.
Okay, so now we'll try to get a clean motion. If you could help, Mr. Solicitor.
sure, as I understand the discussion of the council, it's the majority of the council wishes to file an objection to the application of the Watch Hill Yacht Club for the dredging project based on an incomplete and inaccurate application. The application is incomplete for its failure to identify the Fort Road right-of-way, both in the narrative and on the maps. And we can support that position by identifying those places in the narrative and those places on the maps where it is our position for the Fort Road right-of-way should be identified. And that's the basis of the objection. We're asking that the project not go forward until a full, complete, and accurate application is on file with the CRMC.
I make that motion.
Second.
Councilor Petra,
Yes.
Councilor Overton,
Yes.
Councilor Shalaba,
Yes.
Councilor Lowther,
Yes.
Councilor Cordio,
Yes.
Councilor Lombardo,
No.
and the chair votes yes. Motion passes.